Hey, art historians, welcome. This is a week 2 summary of everything that you completed this week, featuring me, Miss Carpino, or Professor Carpino, and my lovely helper Moon. Hey, buddy. All right, so let's get really into what we learned about this week. First and foremost, with our topics. So we started out with a little bit about the ancient Near East with a whole ton of people included in there, many, many groups. So when I say a little bit about, really, it's a large amount. All right, let's get Moon out of the way so I actually see you all. There you go, buddy. You go sit over there. Anyway, he's very helpful in all of the worst ways. So, when we talked about the ancient Near East, we not only covered the Sumerians, but also the Hittites and the Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, the Sasanians, and many, many more people included in there. A very, very, very long time frame of art with a lot of important pieces being made. Then we got our toes a little bit wet in the pool of ancient Egypt. We talked about the pre-dynastic era and then the Old Kingdom, where we have all of our very famous tombs and a lot of those pyramids. All right, so some notes and reminders before I get started on summarizing our discussion and giving credit where credit is due. First and foremost, I want to let everybody know that the notes, discussions, as well as the form analysis paper are not the optional parts of this class. So what that means is that you should be working on submitting all of this work every single week with making sure that your notes and discussions and then the formal analysis paper, which will be due week 7. Of course, I'll explain more when we get a little closer, but if you want to work ahead, I believe the assignment is up, so feel free. However, those notes assignments, as per the syllabus, they will drop a few of those grades. So maybe you might not do so well on one week, maybe you have to skip one week. Of course, life happens. However, if you fall too far behind, you're going to start to notice that you're not getting those points that we need to earn the grades that we're hoping to get for this class. And if you submit more than 7 notes not in a row, that could result in some attendance issues for the course. So please get on top of those if you can. And the next thing we have are the discussions, and those are just purely not optional. Since we're in an online modality, I think it's really important to be able to foster conversation with our peers about art, and this is the only format that we can do it in because we're all coming from so many different places. So now the last thing, or not even the last, a few more, a couple other things is I really just want to give everybody such a good shout out, amazing improvement on those quizzes. I really felt like my notes were heard and taken, and I really want to give everybody just a total round of applause. Good job on all of that. Improvement seen and noted and appreciated, and congratulations. Now, I made 2 different formats of 2 different assignments that I think will be helpful going forward. The first one is the notes sheet. I hope that that PDF format might have helped out some people who were struggling. I am still getting some responses that the pictures are not always showing up, but if the effort is shown, I will not take the points off. Please just make sure, everybody, you need all core notes sheets finished, 1 per each core work in order to get full credit. If you want to go above and beyond, it is suggested that you do 1 or 2 of those supplemental, but at the minimum, folks, if you want the credit going forward, it needs to be all the core works. I've been giving half credit here and there, but this is really a pass-fail grade, so going forward, I'm going to proceed as so. I also made a new template for those self-guided explorations. Please use that going forward if you haven't already. It'll help make your life easier, and it certainly makes mine easier with grading, and I really appreciate that. All right, so let's talk about what we discussed this week, and I want to give some people some shout out. So, of course, we do need to be responding to these discussions, and we do need to be actually responding to everybody else's posts in the discussion. This is a great time to get to converse with your classmates about what you learned this week, so take advantage of that moment. So first, I want to mention Chloe, who looked a little bit more into the Djoser stepped pyramid, who discovered that it is not, in fact, a few mastabas stacked on top of each other, but an actual pyramid. And I thought that the way Chloe presented that was just really wonderful and informative and helpful to everybody. Now, Chase wanted to expand a little bit more about the fact that sometimes these artworks look so delicate and carefully made, you have to imagine how if one mistake was made, the whole piece would be ruined. And when he examined the silver dish, he certainly felt that way. Now, Mark examined the seated Gudea statue, and what's really interesting about this is that we don't really see the carvings or the mark of the artist. And this happens a lot of the time in sculpture because these artists are really trying to perfect their work and make it look completely finished. A good example is the David, where we do have documentation about how his process worked in regards to the artist who made it, Michelangelo. He was known for taking that chisel to the marble and carving away until we have this rough, bumpy texture. We can even see some of that texture left over in his pieces that weren't completed. Now, when we look at the David, one of probably his most famous works that he made, once he finished cutting up all that stone to reveal the figure underneath, he took a separate type of stone to smooth out all of that marble and really get some nice, smooth, shiny detail on there. So that's why we don't have evidence of the actual mark of the artist in all cases. Now, we want to look and see, Torrey also mentioned a sense of depth and congratulated the artist who made the triumph of Shapur I over Valerian for, even though it was on a 2D surface, really giving that wonderful figural detail, and I could not agree more. And last but not least, we got to mention the detail in that beard on the Akkadian ruler like Jesse did. I mean, the details in that beard alone are pretty intense, and it has to give you a really good understanding as to how important this particular head and figure probably was to these people. All right, so let's cover some quiz questions that we might have had. For the quiz, I really, again, want to congratulate everyone. Those short answers were just so much more full, really answered the question. Continue to keep approaching those this way, and you will continue to receive full marks. So congrats on that, folks. So I noticed that some people had marked a particular question wrong in multiple choice about Ashurbanipal killing lions. While this doesn't show duality, he's really the most important role that he's being shown in this particular piece is the protector. So he's the protector of the city. And I had a lot of people put down that the hypostyle hall was what held up the White Temple in Ziggurat, and unfortunately, those were not commonly used at this time just yet. Our first example is going to be in like the Middle Kingdom in Egypt, and that is really when those are starting to creep up with really large-scale stone construction. And with that White Temple in Ziggurat, those mud bricks would not have lasted at all. And then when we take a look at quiz 3, one thing to keep in mind is the difference between bas and low relief. For example, if you were to look at a brick wall, that would be very low relief, but if you were to think about Han Solo trapped in that metal gook, that's high relief. Something that pops out more at you is high relief, while low relief feels not quite as different from the surface texture as it would if it were to be emerging a little bit more forward. Now, the last thing I want to mention are just a really great congratulations on the self-guided explorations. I really feel like we pushed the envelope a little bit more with these, really explored our thoughts and feelings about art, and I think they came out awesome. So I want to give some shout outs there as well. So first we have Samantha, who read more about the animal sculptures from Persepolis, and she, just like I, was outraged that there weren't more pictures. We need to see the art. Every time we have pictures, the better. And then Rachel read a little bit more about those earth cemeteries, and she reflected more on how the preservation techniques can be used for future excavations and even today. It's kind of a wonder to think about what could have been better preserved in the past if we knew what we know now, but hindsight's 20/20, so. And last but not least, I want to also mention Jace's response, who examined a little bit more about the Acropolis and Persepolis and how those Iranians really got that inspiration and detail and that depth of connection between those two sites. That is one of my favorite moments in art history, and I'm so glad you enjoyed reading about that as well. All right, so next week we're moving into week 3, where we're going to move even further along into the development of Egypt and further into art history. So don't forget, we've got our regular assignments due. This week was an exception with that writing assignment, so one last shout out for a lot of great work done. I really enjoyed reading your responses to exploring that digital tomb discovery activity a little bit more and comparing the modality of reading about something versus doing that more technological investigation. So great job again, folks. And I am just so proud of all the hard work in week 2. Everything has been graded thus far, so if you have questions, feel free to reach out and have a fabulous rest of your week. Bye, everybody.